Hi, my name's Chloe and this is my Marketing Dynamics vlog. So in this vlog I'm going to be covering three concepts: the external marketing environment, segmentation and the marketing mix. I've decided to cover these three concepts as they cover some essential steps in the development of a successful marketing strategy. So for example, an understanding of your external marketing environment can lead to more informed segmentation choices. And when implementing a segment positioning strategy, it is important to consider all aspects of the marketing mix, with the marketing mix itself a product of understanding the customer. So as I work in a political organisation and therefore my interest is political and service marketing, for my practical examples I'm going to consider how these concepts were used in the planning and execution of the Leave EU campaign during the Brexit referendum in the UK in 2016. And then looking at these examples I will then consider practice implications for Leeds City Council in future marketing. So the first concept I'm going to consider is the process of understanding your external marketing environment. So this consists of three phases: the data gathering phase, the environmental interpretation and analysis phase, and the strategy formulation phase. So the external marketing environment can be divided into two: factors close to the organisation, the microenvironment, seen here in the orange, and those factors common to the society as a whole, the macroenvironment, seen here in the yellow. As the external environment is often out of the marketer's control, their role is limited to some influence and reacting to avoid threats and taking advantage of opportunities. The microenvironment made up of those factors impact closely on the organisation and consists of the following elements: competitors, so who offers the closest substitute in terms of meeting consumer needs; customers, what are their needs; suppliers, maintaining a good relationship with your suppliers is key; intermediaries, these are the retailers, wholesalers, agents and others who distribute the firm's goods; and finally microenvironment publics, so these are all of the groups that might have a potential impact on the company, such as shareholders. The macro environment includes the factors that not only influence the firm, but also its competitors, and because of this it also tends to be harder to influence. However, as Blythe and Martin state, the inability to control does not imply an inability to influence. Although the macro environment is uncontrollable, marketers must still develop systems to continually monitor and scan the external environment to be able to take advantage of any opportunities the changing environment presents and minimise the threats that occur. So looking at the macro environment, the main elements are demographic factors, so things like race and gender; economic factors, so such as a growth in unemployment or demand in the economy; political factors, so responding to the current or prevailing political climate; legal factors, so government passing any laws that might affect your business or organisation; social cultural factors, so looking at the shared attitudes and beliefs of the population; ecological and geographical factors, so looking at things like the climate emergency and more green consumers; technological factors, so the impact of the internet, social media, online shopping; and finally macro environment public, so this is things like trade unions and citizen action groups that you have to respond to. So therefore, when examining the marketing environment, in addition to the division between micro and macro, you can take a number of analysis approaches to this audit. So one that has been developed with a full consideration of the market is the steeple approach, which looks at the socio-cultural, technological, economic, ethical, political, legal and ecological factors to look at. So the importance of these factors depends on the industry which is examining them. Environmental scanning in this way is really important, as it recognises no organisation exists in a vacuum, and that a failure to understand this environment could mean missing out on opportunities or ignoring threats, which in turn could lead to lost revenue or, more seriously, loss of competitive advantage. Alternatively, a good understanding would lead to an opportunity to gain advantage over established brands and step into a gap that they may not yet have identified. In implementing this, you can use what is called a focus strategy, which is used by organisations to seek gaps in broad market segments or find gaps in competitors' ranges. So to consider this in the context of my practice example, we can see that in the creation of the Leave EU campaign, there are a number of considerations made of the existing environment of which their campaign would take place, and arguably an understanding of consumer concerns was what enabled them to run a successful campaign and consider some questions that would have been used to develop their marketing and feed into their segmentation process. So since the inclusion of these additional areas, this model is arguably an effective way to consider the external environment that influences. But it should be noted that this research is not always conclusive and does not necessarily translate into a successful strategy, particularly where there is a massive information gathered and it cannot be analysed effectively. So to look at some of the considerations that were or could have been made in the analysis of the Brexit campaign, so social cultural, so attitudes towards the EU would have been considered in terms of what would appeal to voter demographics; technological, so they looked at how they could use social media as a key marketing tool; economic, so while they're not selling a product, they're selling an idea to invest in, so it's still important to look at budget for the campaign and also the economic environment in which you're promoting it; ethical, so making sure that you're appealing to consumer ethics in your campaign; political, so using ideas and a following of political momentum to gather momentum for your campaign. Legal, using data in a way that's legal and using that as a selling point as well for leaving the EU. And then finally, ecological, so making use of an online campaign to save on things like paper. So the next concept I'm going to look at is segmentation, which can be done as a result of a good understanding of your external environment. Segmentation was first developed by Smith in 1957 and is concerned with grouping consumers in terms of their needs. As Baines defines, market segmentation is the division of the market into different groups of consumers with distinctly similar needs and service requirements. Segmentation enables your resources to be used in the most effective way possible, in a way that directly targets and therefore persuades the customer in the acknowledgement that not all buyers are alike. It can be used to revise a marketing strategy, investigate a declining brand, or launch a new offer. It enables companies to have more direction and focus in their strategy, and in doing so grow their product or following. When building up a picture of your segments, there are three key areas to consider. Behavioural, so what consumers normally purchase, what media they consume, and what technology they use. Psychological, so things like lifestyle, personality, and their attitudes. And finally, profile, so looking at their socio-economic status, their demographic, and their geographical location. So this then feeds into what Kotler and Keller have identified as 7 steps in the segmentation process. So once you've identified customer needs using those 3 areas in the first 2 steps, you can then determine the following: segment attractiveness, profitability, positioning, an acid test to test its success, and then finally integrating this into a marketing mix strategy. So with this in mind, we can look at the segmentation of the voter market within the Leave EU campaign, which was heavily based on existing research regarding the social characteristics of individuals and the impact this had on their attitudes towards the EU. Early aspects of this research indicated that there was a correlation between occupational status and educational background and attitudes towards EU integration. For example, those with high levels of capital and higher status occupations tended to benefit more from the lower trade barriers and increased mobility from being within the EU, whereas those with lower status and poorly paid occupations and generally from less educated backgrounds found themselves in competition with similarly low-skilled labour from EU member states and were therefore more likely to oppose EU integration. Also, in terms of age demographic, they found that older people were more likely to be against EU integration than younger people. So looking at the example of a Leave voter segmentation, the Leave campaign made the decision to target those of a lower socio-economic background and create targeted campaigns that would stimulate the interest of these specific segments. So for example, you can see that concerns about immigration along with concerns about the NHS are used to persuade the audience to click on an advert, where their data will then be used to target future campaigns. There are numerous examples of images like this that were used across the campaign to ensure they were targeting different segments, whether they were concerned about the NHS, immigration, animal welfare, jobs, youth unemployment or school. They ensured a targeted campaign was in place. They were also aware that attitudes towards EU integration could be extremely volatile and dependent on ongoing political issues, and therefore there was an opportunity to exploit this volatility and target what they called floating voters. It has been argued that with the Leave EU campaign, the strength of segmentation has been shown, especially in its use in social media, with Facebook now allowing you to create campaigns for all your different consumer segments, set lookalike profiles for your segments, and use this to promote your campaign accurately and successfully. The final concept I'm going to discuss is the marketing mix. The marketing mix is essentially a toolkit of the marketer and looks to put in the right combination of the right aspect of marketing at the right time, and this helps to put your strategy into action. It is essentially a combination of a set of factors or actions that can be controlled by a company in order to influence consumers to purchase its products. There are various different analogies that have come from the marketing mix, but just to identify 2 key ones here. So there are the original 4 P's of marketing, looking at products, so what are the goods and services that the company offers, price, what price do the customers pay, place, the activities that make the product available, and promotion, the action that persuade target customers to buy it. So from this is extended the 7 P's of service marketing, which in addition to product, price, place and promotion now include physical environment / evidence, process and people. This has been altered because of the intangibility of service products. So for example, you buy and pay for a haircut, but at the same time you are not buying a physical product like you would when you're buying a new car. Despite these special considerations, however, the purpose of designing an effective mix remains the same, whether for services or physical products. You are still trying to create a differentiated, attractive proposition for customers. With this in mind, there has been some debate about the marketing mix applicability to all types of marketing, including political marketing. So as Lloyd notes, there has been a move towards the adaptation of marketing mix style concepts in political parties to achieve electoral success, in the way that they use market intelligence to identify voter demands and then design the products to suit them. This arguably shows that the marketing mix is most successful when used in conjunction with other previous concepts I've discussed, such as segmentation. In this way, policy commitments can essentially be seen as the product that a political marketing mix is using to sell their campaign, with politicians also playing a central role in this product. In a similar way to service marketing, Lloyd argues that you are essentially being sold a promise rather than a tangible product. Of course, this is complex, but applicable when looking at the example of the EU campaign. So in reference to this, there are essentially what I would consider 5 steps in creating a successful marketing mix in a campaign, specifically with reference to promoting your product. So these are understanding voter demand through research, designing political promise to match these demands, using segmentation to target floating voters, keeping campaigns consistent in style and content, and finally, supporting conversation and engagement. In this way, I think the Leave EU campaign is an example of a successful employment of these aspects of the marketing mix. As I've mentioned, they understood issues and attitudes towards the EU, made policy promises on what they knew people were concerned about, such as the NHS, and used social media much more frequently than the Remain campaign to ensure that they supported conversation and engagement around the topic. They posted massive more photos and videos in the Remain campaign, as the figures show, and were more proactive communicators throughout, meaning that subscribers more frequently liked and shared this content and meant it was more visible and created further promotion for the campaign. Their victory in the campaign arguably shows how they successfully used the marketing mix to promote a consistent product and meant they were able to win over voters and essentially dominate the market. So to conclude, I'm going to look at practice implications for Leeds City Council, in particular the service area in which I work, which is children's services. I think one of the real strengths children's services has at the moment is an understanding of their audience. So, for example, we have a voice and influence team who ensure that young people's voices are understood and taken on board during changes or consultations, such as around the children's approach to the climate emergency. However, there is probably an opportunity here to use this further understanding of their audience to strategically develop and target their services, which could be done through further segmentation of the market by understanding that children are not just grouped into one, but all have different needs. In addition to this, there could also be further research into the views of parents, and this could be used to inform future marketing. Another strength they have is the brand of Child Friendly Leeds, which promotes a lot of the work of children's services and provides opportunities from businesses for care experienced children. Although the social media for this is of high quality and gets lots of engagement from partners, more could be done here to further promote and support conversation and engagement with parents and a wider group of society, ensuring that the product Child Friendly Leeds provides is understood broader than just those who it works with directly. This could be done through an in-depth look into the marketing mix and how different aspects could be employed in order to ensure that they are able to do this in the same way the Leave campaign did, of course though with less controversy. So finally, I think these 2 considerations will present a great opportunity for children's services to grow their brand standing and also successfully integrate customer need into their strategy going forward. Thank you very much for watching.